You remember it like it was yesterday. Or do you? And if you do, how do you? Like many things about the brain, the actual function of recollection is an unseen and unknown function for most of us. A new book, Adventures in Memory, The Science and Secrets of Remembering and Forgetting, offers some remarkable insights. It is the collaboration of two sisters, novelist and editor Hilda Østby, that's her on the left, and Ylva Østby, who is a clinical neuropsychologist and vice president of the Norwegian Neuropsychological Society. And they join us now for more. God kväll.
God kväll.
Did I do that okay?
Yes, really good.
It's good evening in Norwegian.
Yeah.
How do you turn short-term memory into long-term memory?
Yeah, that's where the hippocampus comes into play. So the hippocampus means seahorse, right?
Yes,
In
it's
Latin.
on the cover of your
that's
book,
why
actually.
it's on the cover,
Yes.
exactly. And so in order for a memory to stick and become a long-term memory, it needs to be consolidated and it needs to be connected in these memory networks where synapses, these connections between neurons, are being strengthened so that they can actually last a lifetime sometimes. So this first consolidation happens in the hippocampus and connects all these different parts of a memory together. And then it gets through a lot of kind of massaging through time and incorporated into our bigger life story, and which is a kind of even bigger memory network, which is our whole story of who we are. And this can take also many years.
Like 2 years, approximately?
Well, it never truly consolidates into a fixed form. It's always malleable and subject to change. Every time a memory is recalled, it gets kind of changed slightly and adapted to the current self and the current environment and what you believe and etc.
But there are some things, Hilda, let me go to you on this. There are some things that seem harder to remember than other things.
Yeah.
Phone numbers or addresses or birthdays, particularly if you have a lot of children, difficult to remember, right?
Yeah.
You are 2 of 4 kids, right?
Yeah.
I'm betting your parents forgot your birthdays from time to time because
I forgot their names.
well, okay. Names too, okay. But why are those things more difficult to remember than other things?
Mostly it's because, of course, it's not connected to our emotions. So what you're saying is that kind of the boring stuff is more difficult to remember.
Phone numbers.
Phone numbers, you kind of, it's no emotion in a phone number.
But a big important moment in your childhood,
yes.
you might remember for 50 years.
Yes, of
Absolutely.
course, because
Or
it's so
80.
connected to...
Or 80 even.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so connected to whom you are and your kind of the story of yourself. And it's a lot of emotions. And but I have developed my own memory technique, which everyone should apply, I think, and that is to study naked, because then you're so embarrassed that you will remember.
I trust you don't do this in public.
I haven't tried it myself, but I would encourage people to do this. Because at least it's a strong emotion. That's my point. It's a strong emotion that you can connect with what you're reading, or you will be kind of overridden with the feeling of embarrassment, and then it's...
You'll just remember being ashamed and embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to take...
It's experimental.
It is, okay. I hate to take us from such frivolity to something very serious, but you do talk about this in your book, and it was something that was incredibly traumatic to the people of Norway back in July of 2011. And, well, let's just start...
22nd of 11.
July 22nd.
Yeah,
That's
July.
right. You have the date in your head, of course.
Yeah.
July 22nd, 2011. Who wants to tell the story of what happened?
Well, there was a terrorist attack by this one person, Anders Behring Breivik. He first detonated a bomb in front of the government buildings. And then he went on to this island where there was this summer camp for the Labour Party youth who were having fun and just hanging out there and talking about politics. So he went to the island and shot down many people.
Dozens.
69.
69
on that island, and
children and some adults. And many people were traumatized by being directly on this island and watching their friends being killed.
Now, you use this example, you use this story as an example of how trauma can affect memory. For example, how?
So we talked to one of the survivors. His name is Adrian Prakon, and he has these memories stuck with him every day since that episode. He was shot and he saw many of his friends being killed. And these memories, they come back to him unannounced, unwelcomed, unpredictable. And that's how traumatic memories usually work. They are so strongly consolidated in our hippocampus with all these strong emotions that
because it's so exceptional what happened, so everything exceptional will stick in your memory extra strong.
Is there anything we can do to lessen the trauma of that memory year after year after year?
Yeah, so the treatment focuses on mainly trying to weaken the emotional impact of the memory itself, because of course the event is highly emotional and we can't do anything about what actually happened in the past. But through therapy we can try to turn down the volume of the memory slightly and try to accept it, because it is going to come back many times, and by accepting it and trying to get used to the feeling of it, it might become easier.
Because trying to push it away will make it worse,
yeah,
right?
People try to avoid having these memories. They start drinking alcohol, or they avoid going out in the street where they can hear sounds and see things that remind them of this trauma. And so they get isolated and even more traumatized by that. So it's important to kind of accept that this will happen, and that for some people it might never go away, and that is just simply because our brains work that way. And,
well, let me follow up on that, because obviously when you've been through something as traumatic as that, for some people it ruins their lives. They never recover from it. The memory of it as it repeats just destroys them. And there are other people who for some reason are able to put that in a compartment, and they are able to move past it and rebuild their lives, and it doesn't destroy them.
Yeah.
Do we know why?
Well, it would be nice to say that I would be able to put it in a compartment and move on, but it's not simply something you choose. It's something that the brain decides, and you just have to go with that, you know. So, but there are studies that show that, for instance, people who have kind of slightly smaller hippocampi actually are at risk of getting these traumatic reactions to a traumatic event to a greater extent. And we don't know why that is the case.
It should be the opposite, right?
Yeah, one would think that it would be opposite, that having more hippocampus would make you remember more, but it's not that simple. It has something to do with kind of the wiring of the memory system in each individual. So it's, but there is a lot of research being done around the world trying to understand why some people get more affected by trauma and others not. But we should all remember that it is not something that we can't choose who we are and how we react to trauma.
It's in your wiring in some respects.
Yeah, and it's kind of the paradox of it is that if the more you put this traumatic event in the center of your life story, like make it into what we call a kernel memory, the more it will affect your life and make you traumatized, obviously. But how can you not do that? I mean, if something like this happened, all your friends are shot around you, and you were, you know, a man with a gun is pointing at you, how can you not be traumatized by that? What kind of person would you be if you didn't incorporate that into your life story, right? But it's kind of fascinating to think about all the people that are traumatized, not just the ones on that island. It's people coming from war zones, people that have experienced, you know, Me Too experiences, and it's so many people going through trauma in our society.
I would like to move us to some conversation now about what we're calling manufactured memory.
Yeah.
You use in the book an example of a psychology professor who devoted much of his life to studying false memories, and if I read this right, he has a false memory of having committed a crime himself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was so much fun.
It was fun, was it?
No, it's really fun that he remembers that he was on this trip with his friend after finishing school, and then he remembers it as the car broke down and they decided to push the car outside into the water and just get rid of it in a kind of illegal way in the nighttime. And when he met his friend kind of 30 years later, it turned out they didn't do that at all.
They didn't do that at all.
They delivered it to a carman, like you do.
So why is that in his head?
He can have kind of imagined it when he was thinking about it. He imagined it, and then suddenly it jumped from his just fantasy of doing something crazy like that, and then it got the label of true.
Now, this is obviously incredibly important, for example, in our justice system, where we're often asking people to recall events of decades ago, and they are absolutely convinced they remember what they remember, and what they remember may not be, and I'm not, this goes for anybody. Has our understanding of false memories changed our relationship with eyewitness testimony?
Absolutely, especially in Norway, where we know most about Norway, of course, but it has definitely changed. But it is a continuing battle to keep reminding the police and the justice system to take care of memory as kind of
delicate evidence.
Evidence material.
That you have to handle with care.
It's not 100% certain, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and you have to be very careful when you bring out the memories as well, not to kind of turn it in a direction, right? Because we're Elisabeth Loftus. She is a professor that has worked since the 70s with false memories, and she found one of her experiments was just that a police officer was taking down an eyewitness statement and writing the wrong color of the jacket of the perpetrator in the report. And afterwards, the eyewitness suddenly remembered it as that color. So that is how easy it happens, that you can change a memory as a police officer.
So do people who work in the justice system understand that eyewitness testimony can be incredibly unreliable?
Absolutely.
They do know this.
Yes, in Norway they are being taught this.
In police academy.
And also lawyers learn this. And it is also important to teach the jurors about how this works.
That is more important because they don't learn it kind of as a part of, they're not professionals, right? And normal people have way too much confidence in their own memory and in others and take for granted that what you say, you believe is true.
Or mix up the trustworthiness of the memory itself with the trustworthiness of the person telling the memory. So that's someone who is believed to be a trustworthy person, then people might think that what they remember is more true than if the person is a bit dodgy and untrustworthy.
But it doesn't work like that at all. And the reason is, of course, that when you see something traumatic happening, so someone is stabbed or a robbery is happening in front of you, you don't think of the clothing. It would be strange if you were like, oh yeah, okay, that's a blue jacket. Yeah, I remember that brand.
Why would you be remembering that when something so much more significant is happening in front of you?
Emotional and dangerous. It's like when a lion comes towards you and wants to eat you, you don't count their hairs, right? That would be very strange.
Who wants to start with the story of Henry?
I can start with the story of Henry. Henry Molaison, he was an ordinary guy, but he had severe epilepsy. And he was given the opportunity to improve his condition by an experimental surgery, where the surgeon would remove both his hippocampi, which is brain structures deep within the temporal lobes, that is inside our heads, behind the ears. And this was supposed to cure him of his epilepsy, but instead he woke up without the ability to form new memories. So he became severely amnesic. And he lived the rest of his life from the age of 27 until he was in his 80s without being able to remember anything.
And Hilda, what is the big takeaway? What's the big lesson from that?
Oh, it was many things that researchers learned from Henry Molaison. In memory research, he's only referred to as HM. He's famous under that name because he was anonymous until the day he died. And they did numerous experiments on him to find out what really happened to his memory, because of course, the most obvious thing was that he couldn't form new memories. And that must have been related to removing his hippocampi. But also, he could remember everything from 2 years before the surgery. So that meant that something happened to fasten our memories during those 2 years.
So once it was in there, it was in there.
It was in there, but it needed kind of 2 years to fasten, right? Because otherwise, he would remember everything until the day his operation happened.
Yes.
And they also did experiments trying to learn him how to, for example, learning how to draw a star through looking through a mirror, which is very difficult. It's kind of, you do the opposite of what you thought you're gonna do. Since he didn't remember anything, he didn't remember that he had tried to do this kind of 200 times the day he finally completed the task perfectly. And that means that he could learn something. He could learn motoric skills. Motoric skills are kind of learning to ride a bike. You say when you learn to ride a bike, you learn it forever, right? And that is true, kind of, it's in your body. It's a different kind of memory than the kind of conscious memories. And also kind of...
And I just add that there was this amazing Canadian researcher who did most of these experiments with Henry, at least in the beginning. And her name is Brenda Milner, and she is a fantastic neuroscientist and my hero.
She's your hero?
Yes.
Where is she from in Canada?
I think she's in Montreal.
In Montreal, okay. How?
And also they found something else with Henry, and that is that he could follow a conversation like we're having now until he was distracted. So he had kind of what they later understand was a part of the memory called short-term memory or working memory. That is what we're doing now. But the minute he turned away and looked back, it was like he never saw that person before.
It was gone.
Yeah, he could tell the same joke again and again, for instance, without remembering having just said it. Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more person. Solomon Shereshevsky.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to start on him?
Hilda
you want to start
on him.
Okay, Hilda, you start on him. You start on Solomon. What was his story?
The interesting thing about him is that he lived in Russia in a kind of pre-war and during Second World War. And he started off as a journalist, and he had an exceptional memory as a journalist. He never had to take any notes. And then he started as a memory artist. So he had his own show where people could scream out numbers, and he would write down all the numbers and then wipe them out. And no, not wipe them out. They would be behind him, and he would just say all the numbers. Later on, they found that he had an extreme variation of synesthesia, which is where all your senses are interconnected. So it's kind of when I have a little bit of it, and that is kind of every day in the week has a different color for me, and music can have kind of colors, and all numbers are kind of shapes. They don't know how many people have synesthesia because it increases your memory, right? Because it makes everything special. Everything is kind of popping at you, right? So it should be, we should all have synesthesia, but we don't.
Well,
We have a few minutes left here, and I want to focus on, let me touch on a couple of more things. Many of us are at the age where we are forgetting things that we know we should know on a daily basis. And I don't mean where did I leave my car keys. I mean, people's names, events, events I was at 30, 40, 50 years ago that I had a perfect memory of a year ago or 2 years ago, and now for some reason those details are escaping me. Is that normal?
absolutely.
No, you're very sick. you should
No.
see a doctor.
I like her answer better.
I'm the neuropsychologist, and I say it's
Ilva?
normal.
Okay,
yes.
You wouldn't take diagnosis from me.
You're just a writer. I'm not listening to you right now. Ilva, you were always my favorite sister anyway. Yes. Okay,
No, but of
so
course,
tell me what's going on.
Of course, memory is deteriorating as we age, and that is a normal part of aging. It starts quite early for some people.
What age?
Like in your 30s.
Really?
Yeah, but you don't notice it in the beginning because it's just little things. And when it accumulates to more kind of alarming levels, when you reach your 50s and 60s, then you start to notice it. Because even without these memory problems, no one remembers perfectly everything. So,
Well, but you know what's strange? 50 years ago, the hockey team that plays in the city in which we are now talking won the Stanley Cup, which is the championship for pro hockey. And I can tell you, from number 1 to number 30, everybody who was on that roster of that Stanley Cup winning team, 50 years ago, it's in there and it's in there hard.
Yeah.
But other stuff I'm losing. Why is that?
Well, that
is
was a
emotionally
very
important for you.
emotional.
Oh, okay, yes, back to what we were saying earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Emotionally important.
But kind of, it's two things that we can kind of cling to, and that is a good night's sleep and exercising is very good for the brain. So just do that and eat healthy, and then you kind of take care of your memory as the best you can.
Okay.
Also kind of remember that all memories can move around and slip through your fingers, and we're all kind of standing on top of the sand castles crumbling into the sea.
Sandcastles, that's a nice
Yeah,
metaphor.
so just kind of accept that.
Sisters, I need to point out a terrible mistake you made in the book here. And I'm going to draw your attention. I'm going to tell your editors about this. It's on page 270, where you talk about the importance of teamwork over the individual achievement. And you say here, it is better being part of the Beatles than being Frank Sinatra. That is just, I'm sorry to tell you, that is just wrong. I'm sorry. That is just empirically provably a mistake.
Okay,
So
we have to retract the book.
I was going to say,
correct it.
for your second printing and third printing and fourth printings, you may want to fix that.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to be helpful here. Those are Hilda and Ilva Østby, and they are from Norway, and they have written Adventures in Memory, The Science and Secrets of Remembering and Forgetting, too much of which I'm doing these days. But I do remember how to say good evening, god kveld. And thank you for coming in here.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having
It's
us.
a pleasure to meet you both.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.